There are moments in life that shake the ground beneath your feet, moments you think you're ready for, until they actually arrive and rip something out of you that you didn't even know you still had. That's exactly what it felt like when Tammy began to drift away again. I could see it in her eyes long before anyone said a word. That quiet heaviness, that storm just waiting for the wrong spark. We'd come so far, survived so much. From the hospital rooms to the rehab centers, from the long nights of fear to the mornings filled with tiny victories. But this time, something was different. Something was breaking from the inside, and no amount of support or love seemed to reach her. It was like watching a glass slowly crack under pressure. You can't stop it. You can only wait for the sound of it shattering. Tammy had started spending more time alone, keeping her distance from everyone, especially Amy. It wasn't that she hated her, no. It was deeper, more tangled than that. There was guilt, frustration, maybe even jealousy, all mixed into something raw and painful. When Amy walked into the room, you could feel the air change. It wasn't words anymore. It was silence that carried weight. I still remember that evening. The air felt thick, the kind of quiet that makes you uneasy because you know something's about to go wrong. Amy was in the kitchen, folding laundry and talking to the kids, trying to keep her tone light. Tammy sat by the window, just staring outside, not saying a word. The light was fading, and the only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. And then, out of nowhere, Tammy turned around, her voice sharp, cutting through the stillness. "You think you're better than me now?" she said. Amy froze. She didn't even know how to respond at first, because she wasn't expecting that tone, that anger. "Tammy, what are you talking about?" But Tammy wasn't really asking anything. She was venting years of pain, fear, and loneliness, things she had buried for too long. "You don't get it," she said, her voice shaking. "You have your family, your life. Everyone's proud of you, and me? I'm just the one they look at like some lost cause." Amy tried to calm her down, but the more she spoke softly, the more Tammy's voice trembled with anger. It wasn't hate. It was heartbreak disguised as fury. You could see her fighting herself even as the words left her mouth. "I'm done," Tammy finally said. Her voice cracked. She turned her face away, tears glinting in the fading light. "I'm done trying to make anyone believe I can change." That moment broke something in Amy too. She didn't argue, didn't shout. She just stood there, silent, defeated, her heart sinking under the weight of words she knew weren't fully true, but still hurt like they were. The rest of the night, no one spoke. The house stayed quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't bring peace, only echoes. Tammy went to her room, closed the door, and for the first time in a long time, Amy didn't follow. She just let her be. Maybe they both needed that. Distance to breathe, even if it felt like drowning. Days passed, but the distance only grew. Tammy stopped answering calls. She didn't show up to family dinners, didn't text back. The few times Amy saw her online, she hesitated to message. She wanted to reach out, but every time she tried, she remembered that look on Tammy's face, the one that said, "Don't push me right now," and yet behind all that silence, both sisters were hurting the same way. Tammy would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding with guilt and confusion. She didn't mean to push Amy away, but she couldn't stop herself either. It was like something inside her was stuck between wanting love and fearing it at the same time. Amy, on the other hand, kept hoping for a sign, a text, a call, anything. She missed her sister terribly, but she didn't know how to help someone who didn't want help anymore. Sometimes love means standing close. Other times it means standing back and letting the storm pass, even if it means watching from afar. Weeks later, the silence finally broke. Tammy showed up unannounced one afternoon. Amy opened the door, surprised, unsure what to expect. Tammy looked tired, not just physically, but emotionally drained. She didn't say much at first. She just stood there, eyes red, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to say all that," she said. I was angry. I felt forgotten. Amy didn't need an explanation. She just stepped forward and hugged her. No words, no speeches, just a long, trembling hug between two sisters who had hurt each other, yet still couldn't stop loving one another. That hug didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the words or the pain, but it was a start, a fragile human moment in the middle of all the noise. For Tammy, it was a reminder that even when she felt unworthy, she wasn't alone. And for Amy, it was proof that love doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under layers of hurt sometimes, But deep down, they both knew this wasn't the end of their struggle. It was just another chapter in a story that had always been about survival. Not just from weight, but from the emotional weight that comes with it. The kind that lingers long after the cameras stop rolling. The kind that no surgery or success can completely heal. And as the evening faded into night once again, Tammy looked at her sister and whispered, "I just want to be okay." Amy smiled softly, tears in her eyes, and said, "We will be. One day, maybe that's all they could hold on to. Hope. Fragile, imperfect, but real." The days that followed felt strangely calm, like the air after a heavy storm. But deep down, I knew it was only the eye of it, the silence before everything shifted again. Tammy and Amy tried to find their rhythm, to rebuild what had cracked, but it wasn't easy. Healing never is. There's something about pain that lingers, even when you think you've moved on. It hides in the quiet moments, in the glances you avoid, in the words you almost say but swallow at the last second. That's what life had become for the Slaton sisters. An endless balancing act between love and hurt. Amy wanted things to go back to how they used to be. Before fame, before the constant attention, before the weight of the world, literally and emotionally, fell on their shoulders. But Tammy, she was different now. The world had changed her, and in some ways, she didn't know who she was anymore. She was tired of being the story everyone talked about, the headline everyone judged. Sometimes, late at night, Tammy would scroll through old photos. She'd look at those moments when she was heavier, trapped in her own body, yet somehow surrounded by laughter. And then she'd look at herself now. Healthier, yes, but lonelier too. The more she changed physically, the more she realized that not everyone around her was changing with her. One evening, as Amy sat with the kids watching TV, Tammy came into the living room. She looked uncertain, almost nervous. "Amy," she said quietly, "do you ever feel like you don't recognize yourself anymore?" Amy turned to her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. "All the time," she admitted. "After everything we've been through, I think we both changed." "Maybe that's just part of growing." Tammy nodded, but her eyes drifted away. "Yeah, but sometimes I miss who we were. When we didn't have to think about what people thought of us. When it was just us against the world." That conversation stayed with both of them. It was small, almost ordinary, but it meant something. Because for once, Tammy wasn't angry. She was just honest. And that honesty began to crack open something that had been buried for a long time. The part of her that still wanted to be loved without judgment. But peace never lasted long in their world. A few days later, an online comment thread started making rounds. People speculating about Tammy's personal life again. About her relationships, her body, her choices. It was cruel, invasive, and relentless. She tried to ignore it, but words can cut deeper than any wound. Amy noticed Tammy withdrawing again, less talking, more scrolling, her mood darker each day. One morning, Amy tried to reach out. "Tammy, don't read that stuff." "You know they don't know you," but Tammy snapped. "Then why does it still hurt?" she said, her voice trembling. "They talk like I'm not even human. Like everything I've done means nothing." Amy wanted to argue, to fight those invisible voices for her, but how could she? The internet had become a part of their lives, their fame, their pain. You couldn't escape it, only learn to live with it. That night, Tammy disappeared for hours. No calls, no messages. Amy sat by her phone, heart racing, fearing the worst. When she finally got a text, just 2 words, "I'm fine." She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. But Tammy wasn't fine. She had gone for a drive just to clear her head, to breathe without feeling watched. She parked by a lake and sat there for what felt like forever, staring at the water reflecting the moonlight. The air was cool, quiet, and she could almost hear her thoughts again. She thought about her journey, about every person who said she couldn't make it, every moment she almost gave up, every tear, every fight. She thought about Amy, about how their bond had been both her anchor and her burden. "I just want peace," she whispered to herself, her voice barely a breath. Just peace. When she came home, Amy didn't ask where she'd been. She just hugged her again, tighter this time. Tammy didn't resist. Maybe she needed that. Not an explanation, not advice, just a hug. Not an explanation, not advice, just a hug. The next few weeks brought small steps forward. Tammy began therapy again, something she had resisted before. She didn't talk much at first, just sat in silence. But slowly the words started to come. The pain, the anger, the fear of never being enough. It all poured out, raw and unfiltered. Amy watched her sister change in ways she hadn't seen before. Not just physically, but emotionally. She was softer, more self-aware. There were still bad days, of course, but for the first time in a long while, Tammy was trying to heal from the inside out, and yet, healing comes with its own kind of pain. The pain of facing everything you've tried to avoid. Tammy's relationship with Amy still had cracks, and sometimes those cracks would reopen without warning. One careless word, one reminder of the past, and the tension would rise again, but they were learning to pause before it turned into another explosion. To breathe before saying things they couldn't take back. Tammy once told Amy, "You're my sister, but sometimes you feel like a mirror. I see everything I hate about myself in you, and everything I love too." It was the most honest thing she'd ever said. Because deep down, that's what their story had always been about. Two souls bound by blood, reflecting each other's pain, pushing and pulling, breaking and mending, again and again, no matter what anyone said about them. No matter how many times the world tried to pit them against each other, their bond was real. Complicated, messy, and imperfect, but real. And maybe that's what made their story worth telling. Not the fame, not the transformation, but the truth that even through the chaos, love still found its way back, again and again. Time has a strange way of moving when you're rebuilding your life. Days start to blur together. Therapy sessions, small victories, the quiet moments of reflection. For Tammy, it wasn't about chasing perfection anymore. It was about finding peace in the progress. Every morning, she'd look at her reflection, not to criticize, not to compare, but to recognize. To see the woman who had fought like hell just to stand there. The fame, the scrutiny, the comments, they were all still there. But her reaction to them began to change. Instead of breaking her, they started to shape her resilience. There was power in realizing that you could survive public judgment and still hold on to your sense of self. Amy saw it too. She noticed how her sister carried herself differently. Still fiery, still stubborn, but with a new kind of calm underneath it all. Tammy didn't always need to prove something anymore. Sometimes she just needed to be. But change always brings challenges. Tammy's new relationship with Andrea started becoming a topic everyone wanted to dissect. They met quietly, away from cameras, away from the noise. For the first time, Tammy felt seen not for her fame, not for her past, but for who she really was. Andrea had a way of looking at her that made her feel safe. It was gentle, patient, something Tammy hadn't known in years. Amy, however, wasn't sure how to feel about it. Not because she didn't want Tammy to be happy, but because she worried. She'd seen her sister's heart break too many times, and she didn't want to watch it happen again. One night, after a long filming day, Amy sat Tammy down in the kitchen. "I'm happy for you, I really am," she said softly. "But just be careful, okay? You've worked so hard to get here. I don't want anyone taking that from you." Tammy smiled faintly. "I know, Amy, but maybe I'm allowed to feel happy again. Maybe I deserve it." It was hard for Amy to argue with that. For so long, all she wanted was to see her sister smile. And now that she finally was, she realized how complicated that feeling could be. The next few weeks were a mix of joy and tension. Tammy and Andrea grew closer, spending quiet evenings together, sharing stories about the past. Tammy talked about her fears, her guilt, her regrets, and Andrea listened. Really listened, but the world outside didn't stay quiet for long. Rumors started circulating online, twisted versions of their relationship, people speculating, judging, and turning private love into public drama. Tammy saw the posts, the harsh words, the endless threads questioning her choices. It stung more than she wanted to admit. Still, she refused to hide. Instead, she began posting photos, small glimpses of her life with Andrea. A dinner together, a walk in the park, a laugh caught mid-shot. She didn't need to explain herself. She just wanted to live, but not everyone saw it that way. Some fans accused her of moving too fast. Others criticized Andrea, calling her names, making assumptions. The negativity began to creep back in, and Amy could feel the shift. Tammy was trying to stay strong, but her old wounds were reopening. There was one evening, quiet, heavy, when Amy found Tammy sitting alone in the backyard, staring at the fading sunset. "They don't know her," Tammy said quietly, not looking up. "They don't know how she makes me feel." Why does everyone always think they know better? Amy sat beside her. Because that's what people do. They talk. But what matters is what you know. Tammy finally looked at her. There were tears in her eyes, but her voice didn't shake. I just want to be loved without feeling like I have to apologize for it. That night, Amy understood something new. Tammy wasn't the same woman she used to be. She didn't need rescuing. She needed acceptance. And maybe, for the first time, Amy realized that she wasn't just her sister's caretaker anymore. She was her equal. Still, not everything was easy. Behind closed doors, the pressure began to build. Filming schedules, public appearances, family stress. It all started to weigh on Tammy. She'd come so far, but the fear of slipping back haunted her. The temptation to fall into old patterns was always there, lurking in the corners of her mind. Andrea noticed it too. There were nights when Tammy would go quiet, her eyes distant. Andrea would reach for her hand, grounding her back to the moment. "You're not who you were," she'd whisper. "You don't have to go back there." But sometimes Tammy didn't believe it. Sometimes the mirror still showed her the person she used to be, the one who couldn't control her body, her emotions, her life. The woman who hid behind excuses because she didn't think she deserved better. One night, Tammy broke down. The pressure, the judgment, the exhaustion, it all came flooding out. She cried until there were no tears left, and Andrea just held her. No words, no advice, just quiet understanding. That moment changed something between them. Tammy realized that love didn't always need to fix everything. Sometimes it just needed to be there. Steady, patient, real. Meanwhile, Amy was dealing with her own struggles. Motherhood, work, and the constant pull between being supportive and setting boundaries. It was overwhelming. But every time she saw Tammy smile again, genuinely smile, she knew it was worth it. In the end, they were two women trying to heal in their own ways. Sisters, yes, but also individuals learning how to breathe outside of each other's shadows. Tammy had found someone who made her feel seen, and Amy had found the strength to let her. The cameras might have captured their arguments, their breakdowns, their chaos, but what they never showed was this: the quiet moments of forgiveness, the late-night conversations, the unspoken love that still held them together when everything else seemed to fall apart. Because no matter how many headlines tried to twist their story, no matter how many voices tried to define them, only they knew the truth. Theirs was not a tale of perfection. It was a story of survival. Of falling, breaking, rebuilding, and still finding the strength to love again. And through it all, Tammy kept reminding herself of one thing. She wasn't living for the world anymore. She was living for herself. For the woman she fought to become. For the peace she'd finally earned. It's strange how something meant to be joyful can turn into a storm so quickly. I thought planning a wedding would bring everyone together again, maybe help us heal what's been broken for so long. But instead, it just reminded me how far apart we've drifted. I can feel the tension in every word, every sideways glance, every time someone mentions the haunted location. They think it's crazy, they think it's wrong, but to me, it felt right. It felt like something different, something that fit who I am. I've never been normal, and I never wanted to be, but the more I talked about it, the more I could see it in their eyes, the disbelief, the judgment, that silent rolling of the eyes they think I don't notice. They don't understand that the haunted place isn't about death or ghosts. It's about rebirth, about facing fear head-on, about saying I do, surrounded by what most people run away from. That's what love is to me, standing in the middle of chaos and saying, I'm not afraid anymore. But when I told them, they laughed. Not loud, but the kind of laugh that cuts deeper because it's laced with pity. I could feel their thoughts before they even said them. Here she goes again, rushing into something, making another mistake. They say it's because they care, but sometimes care can feel like control wearing a smile. I heard Tammy and Misty whispering, thinking I couldn't tell what they meant. They think I'm reckless, that I'm doing too much too soon. They don't see that for once in my life. I feel alive. For once, I'm not thinking about the past or my weight or the pain we've carried for years. For once, I'm thinking about a future that feels like mine. Feels like mine. Still, the words they said stuck to me like wet paper, hard to shake off. She's rushing it. She's not ready. She's got too much on her plate. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am rushing it. But what's the point of waiting when every day feels uncertain? What's the point of holding back when all we have is now? And then there's Tammy. Always Tammy. Sometimes I think she forgets that I have feelings too. I was there for her at every turn, every breakdown, every surgery, every tear she shed when the world felt too heavy. And now when it's my turn to have something good, she looks at me like I've betrayed her. Like happiness is a pie and I took her slice. When Brian got down on one knee in that haunted house, my heart stopped. Not because of the ghosts or the creaking floorboards, but because it was real. The moment I'd dreamed about but never believed would come. The one time in my life when I didn't feel like the other Slaton sister. I felt seen, loved, wanted. And then, before I could even catch my breath, the whispers started. The judgments, the rolling eyes. It wasn't supposed to be like that. I imagined laughter, tears of joy, hugs, support. But instead, I got awkward silence and that familiar sting of disappointment. Tammy's face said everything. She didn't even need to open her mouth. Misty tried to fake a smile, but I could see it. That quiet disapproval. That look that says, here we go again. I keep telling myself not to care, but I do. I always do. When we were little, I used to think that no matter what happened, we'd always have each other. But now it feels like every word I say is twisted, every choice I make is wrong. If I laugh, I'm insensitive. If I cry, I'm dramatic. If I fall in love, I'm rushing. If I wait, I'm wasting time. There's no winning with them. Tammy says she won't go to the wedding if it's in a haunted place. She says she's protecting herself, that she believes in spirits and doesn't want to bring anything dark home. But I can't help feeling like that's just another excuse to not be there for me. Because I was there for her. Church or not, beliefs or not, I showed up. That's what family does. They show up even when it's uncomfortable. Now she's saying she's done with me. That I've changed. Maybe I have. Maybe I had to. For so long, I lived in her shadow, letting her pain swallow up everything in our world. But now I'm the one trying to build something for myself, and it feels like she can't stand that. She says she misses the sister I used to be, but maybe that sister only existed when I was small enough to fit in her shadow. Sometimes I wonder if we ever really understood each other. She says I'm different now, that I'm chasing attention, that I've let something dark attach itself to me. But maybe the darkness she sees isn't from ghosts. It's from years of not being understood. From being told I'm too much, too loud, too emotional, too wrong. She doesn't get that when I chose a haunted house, it wasn't about ghosts. It was about facing fear. About saying that I'm not going to let the past haunt me anymore. About proving that love can exist in the strangest places. But now it's all fallen apart. Everyone's angry. Everyone's hurt. And I'm sitting here wondering how something as beautiful as love could cause this much pain. Sometimes I think Tammy already decided I don't deserve happiness. Like there's only room for one of us to be okay at a time. When she's up, I have to be down. When she smiles, I have to cry. That's how it's always been. But I can't keep doing that. I can't keep shrinking so someone else can breathe. I know she says she's tired, that she's been through hell, and maybe she has. But so have I. I've carried guilt that wasn't mine, pain that wasn't meant for me, and responsibility that no one ever thanked me for. I've been the peacekeeper, the caretaker, the one holding everything together while everyone else fell apart. And the moment I try to do something for myself, suddenly I'm selfish. Suddenly I'm the problem. The truth is, I just wanted my family to be proud of me. I wanted them to look at me and see more than mistakes. More than the girl who always needs saving. I wanted them to see a woman who finally stood up for herself. But instead, they see rebellion. They see danger. They see someone lost. I keep thinking about that moment after the proposal, when the laughter faded and everyone started leaving. The haunted house felt colder somehow, the lights dimmer. And as I stood there holding the ring, I realized that sometimes love doesn't just bring people together. It also reveals who's willing to stand beside you when everyone else walks away. Tammy didn't. She turned her back and walked out like I'd done something unforgivable. And maybe to her I did. Maybe wanting something different, wanting to celebrate in my own way was the final straw. But I can't apologize for wanting a life that feels like mine. And now, as I sit here, replaying every word, every argument, every sigh, I can feel the distance growing. Not just between me and Tammy, but between all of us. We used to be a family. Now we're just people sharing the same last name. And maybe that's the real haunting, the ghosts of who we used to be. The house is quiet now. Too quiet. It's strange how silence can be louder than any scream. I can still hear the echo of Tammy's voice in my head. Sharp, breaking, heavy with everything we never said. I keep replaying the moment she walked out, the sound of her footsteps fading down the hall. I wanted to run after her, to stop her, to make her see that this wasn't about sides or ghosts or proving who's right. It was about love, about wanting something beautiful before life takes it away again. But I didn't move. I just stood there, frozen, holding the air like it was something fragile. Because deep down, I think I knew. If I ran after her again, I'd lose myself completely. I've been chasing her approval my whole life. Every decision I made, every word I said, I always thought, what will Tammy think? And for once, I just wanted to live without that weight. Still, that choice comes with its own kind of pain. Because even when you stop chasing someone, your heart doesn't. It keeps running long after your legs give out. It keeps hoping even when hope feels like a lie. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in that haunted house. The lights flickered, the air was thick, and I swear I could feel something. Not ghosts, but memories. The kind that cling to the walls, whispering in the cracks. Every creak sounded like a voice I'd lost, every shadow looked like regret. And for the first time, I understood what people meant when they said, some places hold pain. But maybe it wasn't the place. Maybe it was me. Maybe I've been carrying this heaviness so long it started to follow me everywhere. Maybe the ghosts aren't in the walls. They're in my chest. I thought about calling Tammy. I even picked up my phone, scrolled to her name, and just stared at it. How many times have we done this dance? The fights, the silences, the apologies that don't fix anything? But my thumb hovered there, and I couldn't do it. Because I realized that if I called her, she wouldn't hear me. Not really. She'd just hear another excuse, another attempt to make her see something she doesn't want to see. So instead, I sat there and listened to the house breathe. Somewhere in the distance, a door creaked open. Maybe the wind. Maybe something else. But I wasn't afraid. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared of being alone. The next morning, the sun cut through the dust in soft golden lines. Everything looked different in the daylight, smaller, less intimidating, more human. The haunted house didn't feel haunted anymore. It just felt old, tired, misunderstood. Kind of like us. I walked through each room, touching the walls, feeling the cracks under my fingers. Every room told a story, just like our family. Some parts broken, some beautiful, all of it real. And that's when it hit me. Maybe this is why I chose this place. Because it reminded me of us. The Slaton side haunted, yes, but still standing. People will say I'm dramatic. That it's just a wedding, just a place. But to me, it's more than that. It's a statement. A promise. I'm not running from my past anymore. I'm facing it. Loving through it, building something inside the ruins. When I finally stepped outside, the air felt sharp, clean. Like something inside me had cracked open and let the light in. I took a deep breath and made a decision. Even if no one else came, even if Tammy never forgave me, I'd still go through with the wedding. Because love isn't about who approves, it's about who shows up. But then, the guilt came creeping in. That familiar ache in my chest whispering, what if she's right? What if you really are making another mistake? I hate that her voice has become the voice in my head. The one I can't turn off. I tell myself I'm free, but she's still there, living rent-free in every thought. Later that week, I found out Tammy wasn't doing well. That hit harder than I expected. For all the anger and hurt between us, she's still my sister. The one who taught me how to braid hair, who sat beside me through heartbreak, who once told me I could be anything. Back when we still believed in things like that. I wanted to visit her, but everyone said it wasn't a good idea. That she needed space. That she didn't want to see me. So I didn't. I stayed home, staring at the ring, wondering if love was supposed to feel this lonely. And then, she called. It was late. I almost didn't answer. But when I did, all I heard at first was breathing. Heavy, quiet, full of everything words couldn't carry. Then she said my name. Soft, cracked, almost like she'd been crying. Amy, she whispered. I didn't mean to hurt you. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world just stopped. I wanted to say 1,000 things, to spill everything I'd been holding back. But the only words that came out were, I miss you. We didn't talk long. We didn't fix anything. But in that moment, it didn't matter. Because sometimes love isn't about fixing. It's about forgiving, even when the wounds still ache. After we hung up, I sat there in the dark, phone still in my hand, tears slipping down my face. I realized that maybe this is what growing up really is. Learning that love and pain can live in the same room, that family can break you and still be the thing you need most. Tammy might never come to my wedding. She might never understand why I chose that place, that person, that life. But maybe that's okay. Maybe this isn't about her understanding me. Maybe it's about me finally understanding myself. Because for the first time in forever, I'm not running anymore. Not from her, not from the past, not from who I am. I'm just walking forward, one step at a time, through the ghosts, through the noise, through the heartbreak. And if she ever decides to join me again, I'll be waiting because no matter what's happened, she's still my sister. And love, real love, doesn't vanish. It just changes shape, waiting quietly in the places we left it behind.